Official, the NBA releasing its full 2022-23 schedule on Wednesday afternoon. The league had already leaked out a few key matchups, but now the full slate is officially out, and we get tip-off times as well. Golden State Warriors looking to run it back as the defending champions. They are second favorites as they enter the season at plus 550. Boston Celtics enter the season as the clear favorites right now at plus 450. Now, they'd already told us who would be playing on opening night. LeBron and the Lakers against Steph and the defending champion Warriors tops the marquee. That is the late game. It will be at 10 p.m. Eastern time, the tip-off for that one. Also that night, the opener, Joel Embiid and James Harden will face Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown on the Celtics in Beantown. That one tipping off at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Let's get schedule reaction from our NBA Trifecta writers Bill Ryder and Colin Ward-Henninger alongside coach and NBA champion Avery Johnson. Let's start with opening night. We knew that going into today, LeBron and the Lakers are going to have to watch the Warriors get their rings. Some added motivation, perhaps. How big of a game is this for LeBron and the Lakers right off the bat, Bill?
Well, I know I'm supposed to be positive, and I live in L.A., so I got Lakers fans who bend my ear every time they think I insult their team. But I think it's going to end up being a reminder that on opening night, there are 3 championship contenders playing, and the Los Angeles Lakers are also playing on that night. Look, we've talked about this, barring a shocking turn of events in terms of Russell Westbrook's quality of play and his ability to fit with that Lakers team. I think what the Lakers are going to get, guys, is a very high-profile reminder, an extremely high-profile reminder, the distance between themselves and the real class of the NBA. Stephen Curry and the Warriors have a chip on their shoulder, and there's respect between Steph and LeBron, but I can tell you, talking to people in each of their camps, there's also a real competitiveness about status and where they're both going to rank and the idea of who's dominated the era, and so on and so forth. The Warriors are going to give everything they have, and I think it's going to be very clear that the Lakers are exactly what we thought they were heading into this regular season, which is an also-ran or maybe a team that's toward that 9-10 spot when it's all said and done at the end of the regular season.
Yeah, I'm just excited because I'm probably going to be in the building for this game. So I'm excited for the NBA season to get started. Bill kind of hit on the Lakers. I can hit on the Warriors. I'm excited to see this team get their rings. This was a team that at this time last year, nobody was talking about them as an NBA title contender. They said maybe if Klay comes back, we'll see. But the start they had to the season and the way they finished with Steph Curry just establishing himself as an all-time great for some reason people didn't have him there already. This is going to be a celebration. This is going to be Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, Steve Kerr, and Stephen Curry, a culmination of what they've accomplished over these past few years. And also a message, as Bill said, that they're not done. I think that Steph's going to come out gunning for LeBron. I think that this Warriors team has a couple of questions in terms of rotation. They're young guys, Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, James Wiseman. Really excited to see what they're able to bring and if they get more into the rotation. So there's some on-court stuff, but really this is about the Warriors celebrating what they've been able to do and their ability to get back to the mountaintop after some down years.
Yeah, and to stay a little bit Warrior-centric, I'm excited to see Klay Thompson receive his ring specifically, especially after 2 years of going through rehab, trying to get back on the court. And I'm looking for him to take another step forward this year to really consistently getting back to the old Klay Thompson. And then Andrew Wiggins, when you look at him, the defense that he exhibited, especially with some of those tough matchups with guys like Jason Tatum, obviously he had to deal with Luka. Now he'll be matched up early on with LeBron. To see him continue to develop into that elite two-way player. So those are the two guys. We know Steph. We know what LeBron brings to the table. We know what Steph brings to the table. And I'm also, as Colin said, excited to see some of those young guys for the Warriors, especially after the Warriors decide not to re-sign Gary Payton II and allowed him to go to Portland, which I think is going to hurt their defense a little bit. So lots of storylines in opening night.
Yeah, and certainly don't want to, minimize the 76ers and the Celtics, 2 teams with 51 wins last year. I mean, Lakers-Warriors might be top of the marquee, but 76ers-Celtics probably the more competitive matchup on opening night. And 2 days after the Sixers open against the Celtics, they get the Bucks. So who is that game bigger for, Colin?
For me, it's the 76ers. I think the Bucks have an established core. Giannis Antetokounmpo, arguably the best player in the world right now. But the 76ers, if everything goes right, this team could be a real contender in the East. Obviously, Joel Embiid, MVP caliber player. James Harden had the disappearing act in the playoffs. When you look at the regular season numbers, when Embiid and Harden were on the court together, they were one of the best teams in the NBA. So I think their offseason additions of PJ Tucker, DeAnthony Melton, Daniel House, those guys will allow the 76ers to have enough depth to maybe play Harden and Embiid together a little bit more, not necessarily have to stagger them. And Tyrese Maxey with the leap he took last year, if they can stay healthy, this is going to be a really, really interesting team moving forward. So I think the Bucks are going to be a really, really good team. But to me, my eyes are going to be on the 76ers and how these pieces start to fit together.
And specifically, when we talk about the 76ers, what version of James Harden are we going to get this year? Are you going to get the old James Harden? And for the Rockets, that was dangerous, that could score 30 points, 12 assists, 10 rebounds? Or what version of James Harden are we going to get? We know what Embiid brings to the table. Nice additions with PJ Tucker. James Harden gave the Philadelphia 76ers a little bit of a discount. So I think he's going to be the huge key. What type of shape he comes in to the season? Does he come in overweight? Does he come in like he's eating a few too many donuts? We've seen that before. Does he come in like he's been working on his core and his body and he's ready to go and that he can play in 72 out of 82 games this year? So he's the guy that I'm going to have my eyes on because I think everybody else on the 76ers will be ready to go.
Discussing breaking news is the NBA has officially released their 2022-23 schedule. We get an early season rematch of the Eastern Conference Finals on the 21st of October when the Celtics go to Miami to face the Heat. Bill, you have to think the Heat are going to be up for that one.
Yeah, no love lost between those two organizations. The guys, I was talking to an NBA executive about this a couple days ago. The Heat obviously had an amazing run last year. They probably didn't get the respect they deserved over the course of the season. It feels like we look over them all the time. We just look past them. And already I was thinking about the teams that I believe in this year in the Eastern Conference, and I think the Heat were all the way down 5 or 6 on my list, apologizing to Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra. And I think it's just one of the realities of that Miami team. They never get the respect they deserve. We look past them way too often. And this is the kind of statement game where the Heat, who have a chip on their shoulder about the Celtics, and their view, probably the right view, that the rest of the country, regardless of what they do in the bubble, make the finals, last year make a deep run in the playoffs, don't take them seriously. They're going to be, like they always are under a Spoelstra and Riley team, ready to play at 115%, in part because, rightfully so, I think they feel like they don't get the credit they deserve for the organization they've been over the last few years.
We then get 5 games on Christmas Day. Bucks and Celtics is one of the headliners there, but we get some good matchups here. Give us the one game that you like in terms of the Christmas Day schedule. Coach, I'm going to start with you here.
Wow, I'm going to say the Lakers had the Mavericks. Whenever you get a chance, not because I can walk 2 blocks to the game, but because, whenever you get LeBron James and Luka, playing on the same court on Christmas Day, I think there's a lot of storylines there. We'll see what the Lakers' record is at that point. The Mavericks lost Jalen Brunson to the Knicks, and there's been a lot of speculation that there were some dealings before Jalen became a free agent that the NBA is investigating. But and we'll see, if the Mavericks can, replace Brunson because he had a breakout year with them. We'll see what Anthony Davis does against kind of the new front line with the Mavericks. So that's the game that I have my eyes on. Lakers at the Mavericks.
Yeah, I know the last game on Christmas is tough. Everybody's been eating. You've been chasing nieces and nephews around all day. But if you could stay up, Suns and Nuggets is going to be an incredible matchup. I think people are sleeping on both those teams in the Western Conference. The Phoenix Suns had the best record in the NBA last season. They've basically got their entire team back. Totally exciting team with Devin Booker and Chris Paul. And then the Nuggets are going to have Jamal Murray back. They're going to have Michael Porter Jr. back. This is a team that with the MVP, 2-time MVP, Nikola Jokic, this is going to be a real contender in the West if they can stay healthy, not only to just be a regular season team, but to be a deep playoff team. So I think if you can stay up, I think Suns at Nuggets is going to be a really, really great matchup to watch on Christmas.
I mean, I'm so excited about the favorite in the Eastern Conference, the New York Knicks. No, I'm just kidding. What are the Knicks doing on Christmas Day? The actual game. Sorry, Knicks fans. I've missed those shots in the offseason. For me, it's Grizzlies Warriors. I mean, all these games are great, or at least 4 of them are stupendous. But I love teams that really loathe each other and that loathe each other because they're competitive and they fought each other in series that matter. And there's a little bit of pride in the sense, at least for the Grizzlies, of they know this is the team we have to get past. I think that's part of that animosity. And I think for the Warriors, whatever Draymond Green says notwithstanding, they understand you got to hold off the young Turks and the ambitious young dudes. And that is represented, I think, best in the Western Conference by the Grizzlies. So that Warriors-Memphis matchup for me is going to be a game where the nieces and nephews, Colin, are put in a corner. I'm going to wait to open some of the good stuff until later, right? Dinner's going to be scheduled around that. That is the game I'm going to be fully focused on. Yeah,
Bucks Celtics for me. I mean, 5 p.m. Eastern time. I don't know how Christmas dinners go around your house, but there's always a kids' table. That's usually where the TV is. The adults always eat in the quiet room. I'm going to be eating at the kids' table this year because I want to see that Bucks Celtics game underway at 5 p.m. Eastern time. All right, last season's 2 NBA finalists meet each other twice in the span of 6 weeks between early December and mid-January. Given that these two teams are the favorites going into the seasons, both matchups have intrigue here, don't they, Colin?
Oh, absolutely. And, I was in the building for some of those NBA Finals games. There's no love lost between these two teams. I think more than the Warriors kind of know who they are. They know that it's a marathon, not a sprint. But I think the Celtics, particularly in that first matchup, are going to come out with something to prove. I think, they, along with a lot of us media members, thought that the Celtics were the better team, at least on paper, in the finals. And in those last few games, the Warriors just took that championship pedigree and stomped them. So I think the Celtics obviously have championship aspirations this year. And they're going to come out with a little bit extra fire, a little bit extra passion. Like, as Bill mentioned, with the Grizzlies wanting to take down the Warriors, the young Bucks against the old guard. I think it's the same thing with the Celtics. They feel they are the next dynasty, and I think they're going to come out with a little extra fire against the Warriors in those two matchups.
Yeah, and I'm really specifically looking forward to the second game in Boston, and really for Jason Tatum to prove that he's taking that next step forward, specifically with taking care of the basketball. How many quarters throughout the playoffs we saw him? He had 6 turnovers in the third quarter at Miami, and high turnover games against the Warriors. Shot a real low percentage. Couldn't figure out a way to shake off Wiggins, and obviously Gary Payton II was involved in a lot of those matchups. But he's now, found a new home in Portland. So I'm really looking to see, what did Jason Tatum do in the offseason? Now, he has obviously games to watch from the finals. He has it on tape. He can go back and reevaluate his performance, especially on the offensive end of the floor, to really, in that second game at home, maybe break out for a 40-point game and play really efficient in front of his home crowd and really try to take some of the bad taste of the finals out of his home fans' mouths. So that's the game I'm looking forward to, and Jason Tatum specifically.
As Avery and Colin have pointed out, this game does not need an enhancement. It's already remarkable. You don't have to add anything to the mix to make it more potent. But I will point out, I guess in closing here, that we don't know what's going to happen to Kevin Durant and the saga between him and the Nets. But we do know, because of Vegas and some of the reporting out there, that the Celtics are the betting favorite to land Kevin Durant if he goes somewhere else. So, guys, just think about what you've just talked about. If for some of those games or all of those games, Kevin Durant is wearing Celtics green against his former Warriors team.
And circles being put onto a number of calendars today. Our NBA trifecta, Bill Ryder, Avery Johnson, and Colin Ward-Henninger, talking about the NBA schedule release with us here on CBS Sports HQ. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Great to see you as always. Great insight as we take a look at some of the key dates on the calendar. Opening night, October the 18th. As mentioned, we get 2 games that night to kick us off. And then the All-Star game, which will be in Salt Lake City. The festivities from February 17th to the 19th. The NBA play-in tournament begins in mid-April. The playoffs are on the 15th. And the NBA Finals, Game 1, June 1st of 2023. So, teams that want to be part of those finals